A man there was amongst us who was bold as mountains or the tides, who spoke his mind not only as himself, but for mankind. His strength a keep, his courage a stronghold, his nature a high challenge unconfined by brutish pattern or by dullard mold. A man there was, as human as the rest, yet shirked no conflict, fighting with all zeal a clause, a cause, a battle, an appeal, one quick to tears and anger, swift in jest, alert to action, steady in ordeal, seemly in triumph, with forgiveness blessed. A man there was at ease, in peace, in strife, who feared not to make history with his life. History with his life. And what history is here? To begin with, his mother, the famous American beauty, Miss Jerome. And he wrote of her, she always seemed to me a fairy princess. Lord Randolph Churchill, his father, of whom he later wrote that he embodied that force, caprice, and charm which so often springs from genius. The hard hat, necessary for the expensive first school, where he counted the days when he should go home to range his soldiers in line of battle on the nursery floor. At Harrow, he was never top of his form, but is shown at least to be halfway up the ladder.
As life unfolded, I've been astonished to find how many more degrees I have received than I passed examinations.
From the toy soldiers of boyhood to youth in uniform, at 22 with the Cavalry in India. Soon, British cavalry was in action in the Boer War. And when this early film was shot, Winston Churchill was already in the thick of it, making and writing history. The army train that was ambushed by the Boers. Young Winston Churchill helped to get the wounded away on the engine and stayed behind to go on with the fighting. So he came to stand there with the others as a prisoner of war. Not for long, though. He escaped by railway, and very soon there was a price on his head. In Britain, a hero's welcome awaited him, and a beginning of a new destiny, that of high politics. Shirking no conflict, fighting with all zeal a clause, a cause, a battle, an appeal. The war over, and civilian battles now rage in the British capital. Churchill, a liberal minister, and the suffragettes demanding votes for women in Britain. Churchill had made himself the target of feminine fury. His meetings were more frequently broken up than those of any other minister. And now it is 1911. In London's Sydney Street, anarchists defied the police, and Churchill, as Home Secretary, called out the Guards, himself joining them at the scene of action. But there loomed a greater threat when in 1914, Churchill took office as First Lord of the Admiralty. A turbulent period of warning and preparation as the clouds of war gathered. In the teeth of opposition, Churchill kept the fleet at sea. When it came, as he knew it would come, his fleet was ready and at sea. A man there was amongst us who was bold as mountains o'er the tides, who spoke his mind. He went to war as a minister, but not long afterwards, he was at the front commanding his own regiment. A coalition government brought him back to make his appearance with King George V and Premier Lloyd George as Minister of Munitions. All All British weapons of war, including the newfangled aeroplane, were under his control, and at this time he took to the air. Visiting the new air arm, flying, not without mishap, and inspecting the air force that was coming into being with recruits from the Commonwealth. He was quick to realize that the war could be lost or won in the armament factories. He was also one of the first to recognize and support the tank, the new weapon which had such a decisive effect on that war. He mingled with service leaders and with Commonwealth and foreign statesmen. He added vastly to his own experience of leadership, and when victory came, it could be said that he was one of its architects. London celebrated the victory, but it was an uneasy peace which followed. After the triumphant drive came the conferences. Churchill halfway up the stairs again in this Locarno Treaty group. Or was it halfway down? Owing to illness, he had to be carried to the poll in the 1922 election, which he lost. Though he was idolized by students of all nations, in the years that followed, his political fortunes wavered. These small, friendly events gave no indication of the greater events that were to come. It was Churchill who warned the people against Hitler and Mussolini over and over again during the 30s. He who later was to speak of Hitler with his tattered lackey Mussolini at his tail. This was not wisdom after the event. For the event itself, a man there was amongst us who was bold, his strength a keep, his courage a stronghold.